Good afternoon, Australia, and welcome to Speedweek. Coming up in the next hour, we're off to Oran Park. The Kiwis are coming and they mean business. Well, that's what the ad said. It's the Shell Mallala Trans-Tasman Super Truck Challenge. The Kiwis, they haven't won one yet. New Zealand's captain, Ron Salter, has assembled a tough team, but are they tough enough? The ROH Commodores are back for their second race at Mallala. Reigning champ Gary Baxter is on a roll, but there's no shortage of challenges, including Giddis in a brand new car, and of course there's always the local contingent to contend with. It's spring, and that means it's time to dust off the summer toys. We profile the water sport of the 90s, hydrocross. This month, 160 riders will battle in 13 divisions for the Australian Championships. So Speedweek pulled on the togs to check out the contenders. Porsche power was in abundance at Winton last weekend for round 5 of the Fortron Porsche Cup. Jeff Morgan is debuting his latest weapon in a very determined defence of his title. But it's not going to be easy when you add in the likes of Keane and his super quick GT2 and special guest star Lucio Cesario. We continue with our coverage of the Australian Safari. It's hot, it's dusty, and it's fast. Our man Rusty was on assignment and files another update from somewhere where mobiles don't work. All this and more is headed your way on Father's Day, once again proudly brought to you by Penrite's HPR range of performance oils.
Nice to have your company here at Sydney's Oran Park Raceway. Bumper crowd in attendance. This is the Shell Mallala Super Trans-Tasman Super Truck Challenge for 1996. Rodney Crick, the pole sitter. Greg McShane. It should be a great one for the Aussies.
Certainly should. Look, the Kiwis determined to get on with this job and try and win at least one. This is the 5th annual meeting between the Aussies and the Kiwis. Rodney Crick, Captain Kangaroo from pole. Let's see what he can do. Allport on the outside. Ex-rally champion. In fact, he's keen to get onto the dirt around here at Oran Park. We'll see how he goes. Crick helping him out just a little bit into turn 1. Have a look at this. Salter sideways. He's been run off the track. Robbie Russell's in there. Glenn Dobson's in there as well. I'd say Ron Salter won't be too pleased about that.
Exactly right. What a controversial way, you might say, to start the race off here at Oran Park. We've seen a couple of trucks come together. Let's recap the positions on the circuit at the moment. Rodney Crick is your leader. Right in behind him, we've got the Muscat Trailers machine of Al Cedars, and we've got the first of the Kiwis, Neil Allport. So good points for the Aussies at this stage.
Well, it certainly is. I mean, it's a point score. The name of the game, try and bring the trucks home in as many forward positions as possible without taking out your teammates. That's one of the tricks of this game. Allport looks pretty strong. It's a fast truck. All he has to do is settle into the role here at Oran Park. Now we've got Bill Cedar sitting back, truck 41 there. Next one through, that's Allport. Rodney Crick, well, the king of Oran Park. Little doubt about that. He is based here at Oran Park, knows the place, knows his truck, and has done a mile of testing. Having said that, so has Ronnie Salter, the king of the Kiwis. He is determined to try and make this one for the Kiwis.
Tremendous action going on here. This is the battle for second place. Neil Allport it is in truck 64, the Western Star. And I tell you what, he's really taking it to Billy Cedars. Cedars all sideways in the Muscat Trailers machine. Manages to gather it all up and get it back on the black stuff, which is what's all important. This particular truck that Allport is driving, you may remember last year, was driven very superbly indeed by Jimmy Richards. But I tell you what, Greg McShane, that sounds even crisper this year here at Oran Park. I think they've done a lot of work to it.
I'm sure they've done a lot of work. They've got some pace out, but here it is sitting in second place. Billy Cedars in behind him. Wasn't that a piece of driving from Cedars not to hit anything? Managed to keep himself out of trouble as they charge on down the straight. Then it's Dobson. The next one through will be Robbie Russell. Believe it or not, he was actually the Kiwi captain, or they tried to make him Kiwi captain one year because he was the Kiwi champion. These guys swap backward and forward, win, lose or draw. This man on screen, Rodney Crick, is the captain of Australia, and he's called Captain Kangaroo for a very good reason, because this man has led Australia to 4 victories so far in the Trans-Tasman. Let's see how he goes in this particular one. But Cedars back on the charge. Bill Cedars with a good truck. It seems to be making good power for them. Remember, these trucks making around 1,200 horsepower. Well, in fact, you can see Rodney Crick making good use of that on the final turn as he heads up to take victory in the first of the 4 Trans-Tasman truck races here at Oran Park. Great victory to Australia. Let's see who gets across the line for second. It is Allport and then Billy Cedars. So Kiwis back in 2nd and 5th position. At the moment, the Aussies are leading. Great run there from Rodney Crick. I think Allport really just has to concentrate on the starts, Crick.
Well, the start, of course, is all important, but this is the finish of the race. Ronnie Salter has just started carving his way through the field here. He looks to me like he is one very unhappy camper as a result of some of those altercations in the first race.
Well, he certainly does. At the moment, he's supposed to be behind the pace car. Look at this. He's pulled up on the straight, and he is making curry for the poor officials down here. Now, I'm not sure whether it's to do with his new grid position or whether he just wants to make the point that he didn't particularly like the way he was treated down at the bottom turn first time round. Either way, these are rolling starts. They're supposed to be back-to-back, which means that they'll simply come around, grid back up and do another 3-lap screamer. Let's see how it goes. That's exactly what's happened. We're back in formation. Let's have a look, see where Robbie Russell is. And he's in truck 3, in grid position 3. Beside him is Ron Salter. Now this will be very interesting because that gives Robbie Russell the inside run, and all he's got to do is try and hold out Ron Salter. Maybe easier said than done.
Certainly should be. Confirmation is through from officials here at the circuit. Salter's big complaint was actually about the Aussie driving. He was very disappointed at the aggressive approach taken by them. He thinks the New Zealand team are just going to get on and do the job and put some results on the board. And I tell you what, that's exactly what he's done. What a great start from him. Good start also by Dobson. Your leader at this early stage is Bill Cedars. It is Cedars from Glenn Dobson. Ron Salter on the inside. Neil Allport's in there also. So maybe this is the opportunity, Greg, where the Kiwis will put good points on the board.
Well, given that Salter can get on with it, get past Dobson and Cedars, we'll see what happens. But ultimately, watch for Rodney Crick. Truck 7 at the back of the field. He'll be trying to pick up points as quickly as possible. There he is in behind Neil Allport already. Robbie Russell right to the back of the field. So not a good start for the Aussie ex-Australian champion as they head down, up and over the dogleg, down into this corner. Have a look at this. They're 2 and 3 wide. And if you saw Oran Park, you'd realise there's not a lot of space for all of this as they charge up and onto the straight. Remember, only 3 laps. No real time for tactics. Pull the pin and go for it.
For those of you who are following the New Zealand team, you may have noticed that Gary Davey has not made the start of this race. And in fact, truck 60, John Bomburley is substituting for him at the moment, but he is running stone motherless last. This is the pointy end of proceedings. Bill Cedars, your leader from Glenn Dobson, 1st and 2nd for the Australians. We go back to 3rd, and we find the hard-charging Ron Salter, the reigning New Zealand truck racing champion, and not too far in behind him, of course, is Neil Allport in the Western Star.
Now you can see there that Cedars subbing for Thompson is leading this race. Black smoke comes out when the hammer goes down. It's easy to spot when the throttle's open on these trucks. Cedars looks strong. Dobson in behind him, almost running shotgun. And I would say Dobson to be a pretty busy man in the mirrors at the moment because he's got it all fired up. Ronnie Salter right in behind him. Cedars looks strong though. I think Cedars will probably do the distance. Maybe Ronnie Salter's got a way to get around past Glenn Dobson, but I haven't seen it yet. Dobson is strong.
Certainly is. Salter having a very good run here, using all of the track and then some. But I tell you what, I'm very impressed with this Muscat Trailers machine. It's an older Kenworth W900, but it certainly seems to be very well set up for this Oran Park circuit, and Cedars is doing a tremendous job.
Again, it comes down to track setup. Ultimately, you cannot beat practice lap. We're seeing times that are excellent times for a fast road car from these trucks. Remember, they're speed limited to 160 kilometres an hour. In fact, they hit that limiter on 2 occasions, not just down the straight, but from here, up Spectator Straight, they're doing better, well, they're not supposed to be doing better, than 160 kilometres an hour. Up and over the dogleg they come. Big run here from Cedars. He looks super strong.
Certainly does. He's bringing the Muscat Trailers up and onto the straight for the final time in race number 2 here at Oran Park. He'll take it out. A great run from Billy Cedars. Glenn Dobson's in for 2nd. Can Salter get around him? I don't think so. He's too far in behind him. That's the way they're finishing 1, 2 and 3. 4th place going to Neil Allport. 5th for Rodney Crick. More good points for the Australian team.
Certainly is a great run there, and you've got to hand it to Billy Cedars. And I would say that Glenn Dobson, pretty pleased with his performance. We'll have the rest of the races on next week's show. Meantime, let's head to Mallala for the ROH Commodores.
Right now, though, it's time to go back to Mallala Motorsport Park in South Australia. Joining us in central commentary is Ian Luff. And Ian, round number 4 of the ROH Wheels Commodore Cup always promises loads of ground-pounding excitement.
Well, these Commodores around Mallala very much push and shove. Gary Baxter, once again at the point end of the field. I tell you what, he's making a regular habit of this, isn't he, Greg?
Certainly is. A great debut run by David Giddis, as we saw it in the first race of the day. He's got a brand new car on the outside of the front row. He's had a little bit of an inconsistent performance throughout the course of this year, but courtesy of the new car, really back on the pace. Away we go. The flag drops. The talented local South Australian Gary Baxter takes the lead immediately and gets on with the job. Giddis settles back into 2nd place. I think you'll find at the moment third is the Trust Bank machine of Dean Crosswell. He's already getting up there and arguing. Paul Burfoot's up there, one of the talented South Aussies. He's an ex-Formula 4 driver and really getting on with the job. There's Cook, a new car for him this weekend, car number 20, Jeff Cook. A debut performance from him, and gee, that car looks a treat, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, Aussie Sweets on the back, they must be pretty happy to join him. And really, the presentation, we've said it plenty of times, the presentation of Commodores is fantastic. A little bit of rally crossing here in the first corner. It's always important with racing. The cars are very cold, the drivers are cold, and you've got to get through that first corner if you want to get to the pointy end of the field.
A little bit of melee going on at the southern hairpin. You saw there Maury Platt in the second of the active display machines. He's driving David Giddis's old car, car number 7. And also involved in that was Colin Johnston. Now, Colin had a retirement in race 1, and already he's had a bit of an excursion here in race 2. So let's hope he can keep it on the island throughout this one. Loads of action and excitement from the V8s here. The crowd at South Australia just really loves them.
Well, V8s sound great. They really do. Lots of high revving. These vehicles here, they run a 5-speed Toyota Supra gearbox, which is something a little unusual. The Supra box is very strong, and it allows these drivers to have lots of, points for gear changing and makes the driving very spectacular.
David Giddis, your man, currently sitting in second place, being hounded a little bit by Crosswell. Your leader, though, Gary Baxter. He's a local man. This track is his home circuit, you might say. Did a little bit of testing here in Group A terms recently. Was hopeful of picking up a drive for the endurance races. Unfortunately, that hasn't come to fruition, but he's hopeful of a couple of big things next year. There's Jeff Parker. He's a very talented performer indeed. Has had a bit of an off year so far, but back on the pace here at Mallala, and that's what counts.
Don't these cars look spectacular, Rusty? Lifting the wheels. I mean, I'm very impressed. They've got the cars set up fairly soft because that makes them easier to drive. If the car's very stiff, they slide around. But I love all this wheel height, and that's what makes Commodore spectacular. I'll tell you what, talk to the race fans here. They love it.
Ian, I think the best thing about this entire series really has got to be just how cost-effective it is. It doesn't cost you bucket loads of cash to go racing at the pointy end of proceedings. You can come along to this very well-run series. There's good PR for the drivers. The cars are always well presented. That's part of the deal, particularly those ROH wheels. They look absolutely fabulous.
Well, very much so. ROH have put a lot of money into the series, and as we've said before, the reflex wheels that these cars are all running. Look, we've got a problem there. One of the cars, unfortunately, with the hand out the window. Naturally, very important if a driver's got a problem. Use the hand signals there so the cars coming up behind are going to know that that driver's out of the race. But like we said, these reflex wheels, they really put them through the rigours here, bouncing over ripple strips. And I tell you what, if any wheel can stand up to this sort of torture, it must be pretty good for its longevity on the road.
A little bit of sunlight coming through the commentary box there. It was a little bit hard to tell, but the car that was slowly starting to slip back through the pack was car 99, Dean Crosswell. He was running third. Now, it looks to me like he's got a flat right-hand front tyre. I tell you who's gone off here also is Paul Burfoot. Now, he's managed to gather it all up, but I think he's heading for the pit, so some kind of problem for car 23 there. Now, that's a real shame. He had a great one in race 1 of the day, but heading to the pits now, some sort of problem for his car, and this is his debut performance here this weekend. Have a go at these two, though. These two have just got so many miles under their belt. We're talking, of course, about Gary Baxter, the man with the coveted #1 plate, the reigning Australian ROH Wheels Commodore Cup champion, and right in behind him, one of the founders of the series, David Giddis. Two very talented, very, very capable drivers, and they're getting on with it at the pointy end of proceedings.
We'll have a go at these two red cars. We've got Monterosso and Parker. Parker locking the wheel there, down into the very tight corner, back to second gear. Young Monterosso in this #2 car. He's absolutely a fantastic find, running in his home state here in South Australia. The Monterosso family been around sports sedans for a long time, Greg, and I suppose like everything else, plenty of tuition from older brothers.
Exactly right. The Monterosso pedigree, a very big name for him to live up to, but young Stephen doing a tremendous job here at the moment. Car 43 starting to come into to play. He's a talented South Australian, Wayne Perry. A little bit further back off the start line, but gee, he's fought his way through the field very, very well indeed. Good opportunity to take a look at what the rules of Commodore Cup racing are all about. And the main thing is the chassis. They don't allow you to run a current shape VP or VR shape Commodore chassis. You're only allowed to run the VB through to the VK model cars, which have the rectangular style lights on them. At the pointy end of proceedings, we've got a VC in the hands of Gary Baxter. Three VHs. We've got Giddis. Of course, we've got Parker. And then, of course, we've got Monterosso there, all in VH models. Then we've got the VB machine of Perry starting to come through there. So some older cars, some younger cars, not necessarily the pick of the bunch, you might say, Ian.
Well, probably the model is fairly academic, whether it's a 79 VB, which is getting a little bit, I suppose, long in the tooth. All of these cars are freshened up all the way through. About the only thing that's original is the body. They're running totally new suspension. All of the brakes are modified, as we said about the running gear. They've got Supra gearboxes in them. The engines, they're a 253 V8 or the 4.2 litre. They've got set modifications, which means It's not about bringing your checkbook along and seeing how much money you can spend. It's about cubic entertainment, and that's probably the big factor where Commodore Crazy is scoring big points with the crowds here, particularly at Mallala today.
Exactly right, and the awesome V8 sounds, the crowd just absolutely love it. They run their way down towards Bridgestone Corner one more time. Your leader is Gary Baxter, second place Giddis, third place young Stephen Monterosso doing a great job. Then it's Parker. We then find Perry starting to come under a lot of pressure from David Sala. Sala again has had a bit of an off weekend, you might say. He seems to have his ups and downs, but he's starting to carve his way through the pack. This is your leader, Gary Baxter. Boy, oh boy, home turf. He's been untouchable virtually all year, and again he's showing that here at Mallala.
Well, you can see Gary's car the way it's sitting very flat on the road. Before we watch Parker's car with the wheel, they're probably a good 10 inches in the old scale off the deck. But you watch with Baxter's car how flat he's got the car set up. And that's a credit to his team. I mean, they do a great job here. A lot of testing would have to go into this car to have it working the way it is. Giddis, well, what can we say about him? Brilliant presentation. The Cadillac Plastics car, absolutely picture perfect, and once again a credit to the team.
They make their way down towards the northern hairpin now. Giddis slowly trying to reel Baxter in. I don't know whether he's going to be able to do it towards the closing stages. Judging by the lap times at this point, it seems to me that Giddis is one of the fastest men on the circuit, and Baxter is slowly but surely starting to fall back through the pack. So I wonder if these very durable Hoosier tyres are starting to go off a little bit for Giddis in the closing stages.
Well, V8s have got a lot of low-down torque, a lot of pulling power out of these very tight corners. And what can tend to happen, particularly going back into the lower gears, like say back to second, where you're putting that power down there, it doesn't make any difference how good the tyres are. And I'll tell you what, there, that lock brake there for Monterosso, that will not help. That'll cause the old tyre to be D-shaped. And every time he brakes again, if he's not careful, the tyre goes round to the flat spot, and I suppose it gets worse and worse. So once again, Hoosier are great tyres, but this is real punishment for them here at the racetrack today.
That's one of the characteristics that I've really noticed about this ROH Wheels Commodore Cup racing, is that because they are so softly sprung, it does tend to lend itself towards wheel lockups, you might say. And that's where, in my opinion, Baxter has just been so dominant. He doesn't tend to wear his car out by locking the brakes so often. Particularly that was evident at the Amaru Park round as they come up and over the top of the hill. He wasn't locking brakes there, whereas a lot of other competitors were.
Well, that's right. It's the terminology where you brake very late to a corner. It's called threshold braking. You take the braking right up to the point, and it really comes back to developing sensitivity in your foot. That's why drivers wear race boots, which have got a very thin sole, so you can actually feel what the tyres are doing. If you've got the old heavy club foot situation and you brake too hard, naturally you lock up the wheels, the flat spots happen, and in a lot of cases there, if you brake too late, you can lose the back end, and round she comes.
Excitement aplenty happening here at Mallala at the moment. Your leader is Gary Baxter in the Valvoline car, and he's slowly but surely being caught by the rest of the field. In second place is David Giddis in the active display group machine. He's really pressing on hard. This is a real four-way dice going on for third place at the moment. Perry's in there, so too is Sala. Jeff Parker's in there, and the man who holds down third place at the moment is, of course, young Stephen Monterosso. They make their way through the S's and on to the front straight here one more time. Loads of attitude from these Commodores. A little bit of flame spitting going on here. The crowd just loving this awesome action at Mallala.
Fair bit of oil surge there in the Sala car. What can happen there, throwing the cars around, you've got to be very careful that you don't get the oil splashing up. Speaking about splashing up, have a look at Parker. Got pushed wide there. That's a great move on that corner. Almost a touch with Sala, but when you think about it there, very common sense approach to driving. He got forced off the racing line, but he didn't rush back onto the track and T-bone the car beside him. So that shows a lot of maturity for Parker, and if he keeps driving that way, he could go a long way.
This particular car is just so beautifully turned out. You've heard me mention a couple of times he was involved in that unfortunate melee at the Winton round last year, but they've really fixed the car and done just a great job of it. It's been a little bit off the pace, but starting to get back on it now. A little bit of damage to the front of Sala's car there starting to show. Starting to come up and play, and this one also is the number 17 McDonald's machine of Ross Halliday. Have a go at them, 3 and 4 wide as they come down into the southern hairpin. Late under brakes is Sala. He's on the outside, and Perry now is going to be hung out wide as they come into the sweeping left-hander. Perry very promptly shuts the door, so that's good driving by him. Let's recap the positions for you as they stand on the circuit at the moment. Gary Baxter, the South Australian, leads it from the Victorian David Giddis. Third place being held down by Steve Monterosso. This is a good dice going back in 6th and 7th place. David Sala. Boy, oh boy, what a tremendous amount of experience he's got in Formula V, in Group A Corollas. He's tried it all. He's even had a run, I noticed, in Group A Sierra, so he's really dabbled in all kinds of horsepower.
Yeah, well, he's been around cars a long time, and he's showing a lot of maturity out there, and that's what it's all about, learning racecraft, where you can race this close to cars. The important thing is anyone can go out there and have the red mist come down, but the important thing is to be a judgmental driver where you can actually drive to the car in front. You've got to make decisions. You can see Giddis there. I tell you what, Giddis is the big mover here. He's come right up on the back of Baxter, but I really think that Baxter at this point in time has got the corners covered very well.
Arguably the performer of the weekend is David Giddis. As we mentioned, this car turned a handful of laps at Calder Park where it suffered gearbox problems. It was stuck in second gear all the way around, so it really wasn't a very definitive test for the team. And they came here to Mallala, did a little bit of work on it, and they're right on the pace. A testament to Maury Platt and just how well he builds the car, and more importantly, to just how good a driver David Giddis is. This series is just so close in terms of performance modifications. There's really nothing in it. Giddis really taking it right up to Baxter now, the series point score leader. They make their way down towards Bridgestone Corner one more time. Now, I wonder if Baxter has a problem. He is definitely starting to slip back.
Well, it would seem that Baxter has got a problem, because look at that, the way that Giddis has come up through the outside there. Only a few corners left remaining here, and I'll tell you what, this is going to go right to the wire, Rusty.
You won't beat Baxter through the S's. It's as simple as that. It is his home turf, and he knows this Commodore Cup racing just so well. Having said that, Giddis goes for a lunge on the outside. He can't do it. Baxter takes the win. Giddis will grab second. A tremendous run to Monterosso to grab third place. Boy, oh boy, going right down to the wire throughout the field. Sala will take fourth place in one of the closest races of the season. And that man there is your eventual victor, 2 from 2 here at Mallala. He currently leads the ROH Wheels Commodore Cup, and he's extended his point score even further. He now leads it on 64 points.
Okay, time now to check out the newest motorsport of the 90s, Hydrocross. We sent our new rookie reporter, Kylie Merton, along to check out the scene.
Here we are at Penrith Cable Ski Park for the build-up to the Australian Hydrocross Championships, which are to be held on September 22nd. As you can see behind me, the jet skis are in action. Riders will compete across 13 divisions, catering for all classes from juniors to stock to the pro modified. It's a hot field lined up, and it's the first time that 4 Australian champions will compete together before heading for the World Finals. So how does it feel when you're out there racing?
It's a bit of a buzz. I've come from motorcycle backgrounds, and it's very similar. The class that I ride are a sport class, and they're very like motorcycles on water. You hang your knees, your shoulders, everything out on the water as you turn.
And it's a marvellous jet ski that you've got. How much are they worth?
To start off with, they start from about $10,000, and then you've got to add bits to make them go quicker. They end up around $15,000, $20,000 by the end of it.
Gary London is the current Australian #1 pro rider. We asked him what his plans were for the future and how he felt going into the final round of this series.
After the final round here, we'll be going to America to race in the World Finals, represent Australia for the World Championship, and hopefully do good over there.
You must be feeling pretty confident going into the grand final.
Yeah, we're pretty confident. We do a fair bit of work on the boat during the week, my brother, and everything's running pretty good, so we're looking good for the final round, I think.
Is there a lot of technique involved when you're racing?
Well, anyone can ride one, basically, if you want to just social, but to racing, I suppose there's a bit more technique involved, keeping the boat hooked up and getting actually around the track in the tight corners.
What sort of speeds are you reaching when you're racing the jet skis?
Well, the fast full modified one's doing over 65 miles an hour, so over 100 kilometres an hour.
So how can people get into jet ski racing?
Well, apart from having to buy a jet ski, you join a club, the Australian Personal Watercraft Association, and basically turn up on the day. They have classes from beginners all the way up to the pro class. So, you know, as your experience increases, you go up various classes, and it's made for the whole family, men, women, and we've also got juniors racing.
Jet ski racing isn't a male-dominated sport. There's plenty of room for females. Susan, how did you get into jet ski racing?
Well, we first got into it socially. We used to hang around the river and that, and because we're a competitive family, we then decided to start up the APWA, and from there it's just grown from force to force.
So have you been touring with the jet ski races?
Around Australia, yes. I didn't get to do all of them, but yeah, it's great.
And you must meet a lot of people, do you?
Yeah, 1,001 people from all different states, and yeah, from babies to grandmothers and to the competitors themselves.
And what's the best thing you like about racing the jet skis?
I like the speed, and I like it because it's really competitive as well.
final round of the APWA Hydrocross Championships will be held on the 22nd of September at Cable Ski Park in Penrith. Speedweek cameras will be there to cover all the excitement and action of this event.
Welcome back. As we settle in for the second half of the program, let's check out some motorsport events in September. The Shell Advance Road Racing Championship heads west to Wanneroo and Mallala. South and West Australians can look forward to some of the best racing fields in years. In the Superbike title, Peter Goddard and Troy Bayliss have been fighting around the country for wins and points. Wanneroo local 250 Grand Prix ace Alan Watts is on form and will be hard to beat on home turf. Add in the 600s, 125s, 250 Fridays and sidecars, and you've got a great day's entertainment. For historic car racing fans, Wakefield Park near Goulburn is holding its annual sports car meeting on the 22nd. 6 historic groups will see over 100 entrants vying for victory in one of the country's premier historic car meetings. You'll also see Sports 1300s, marked sports cars, clubmans and the regularity trials. For more information, call Wakefield Park. Also on the 22nd, Cable Ski Park at Penrith in Sydney's West is holding the final round of the Australian Jet Ski, Runabout and Sports Class titles. It's a fantastic venue to watch the 160 competitors in action. If you're about to buy that jet ski, don't miss this one. Okay, time now to catch the Porsches at Winton with Greg Rust and Ian Luff.
Nice to have your company here at Winton Motor Raceway in the beautiful little Victorian township of Mallala. This is round number 5 of the 1996 Fortron Porsche Cup. With me in commentary, as always, is Ian Luff. And Ian, the Porsches always promise plenty of excitement here at Winton.
Very exciting. The Porsches at Winton always put on a great show. Unfortunately, John Nichols in grid position 6 won't be here. Had a bit of a prang in practice, and that's very unfortunate for John.
Particularly when you consider the performance he had at the last round at Mallala, away with a start, Morgan getting the best of it. I tell you what, a little bit of bip and bam going on here. That's Roger Patterson, the B-class competitor. You can see the beautiful blue paintwork on the front of his particular car. Now, he had a great run at Mallala and had a lot of good points on the board. And I tell you what, he'd be concerned because that man there, that's Peter Fitzgerald. He's gotten a great start, and he'd be wanting to put some good points in for Class B.
Well, that's right. Fitzy's a very hard competitor. He likes the Winton layout here, and that particular car works very well. I can tell you what there, that Greg Keane, he's the man to watch. He's been the big mover and shaker. Well, look at that. Speaking of being on the move there, Morgan's car had a huge understeer, probably because the tyres were very cold, and that Penrite corner really is so difficult getting the cars in there.
Tell you who had a good run from the start, coming from grid 6 was Anthony Tratt. He is now up into second place, so it is Keane from Tratt. We go back and find Morgan. They are really just sort of moving all about on the circuit at the moment. Cold tyres starting to come into play.
Well, that's right. the cars have to get up to temperature, and probably more importantly, the drivers really have to settle down. The speeds around Winton are deceptively fast. The corners flow very well, and unfortunately, if you get the corners wrong, speaking of getting it wrong there, have a look at Ed Aitken. He and Withers had a bit of a touch there coming into the main straight corner, and I think that's the last we're going to see of Ed Aitken, because she's a bit of a swamp out there, and you can see he's having a huge problem trying to get out of that particular part of the circuit.
Action aplenty here at the moment in the Porsche Cup ranks at Winton Motor Raceway. Lucio Cesario, he's a welcome return to racing here in Australia, and he's back in Porsche Cup.
Well, Lucio's been around racing a long time. He's raced internationally, he's raced with Lancia. In fact, he's driven at Bathurst, driven with Alfa Romeo team with Colin Bond. Very experienced competitor, pushes on very hard, so he should be very interested to watch the Porsche Cup.
Certainly should, particularly when you consider that he was the 1982 Australian Formula 2 champion, so he's had a lot of experience in open wheelers, and he's back in a tin top, and the tin top racing we are talking about is Porsche Cup. At the moment, Greg Keane leads them. They come down the back straight, right in behind him, Anthony Tratt in the toll machine. What a debut from Jeffrey Morgan. This is his brand new car. He's done a lot of work to it, and it's really doing such a good job here at Winton.
Well, straight out of the box, particularly with a new car, it is always very difficult to get a car to work straight off. You can go private testing, but there's no substitute for racing, because that really improves the breed. And in the case of Jeff Morgan's team, we've said it before, very good preparation. Look at this, we've got Max Dunn's car there. A lot of front-end damage. For some reason there, he's had a bit of an off there, but I suppose that's the closeness of Porsche Cup racing at Winton.
At the front of the field, the 911 GT2 of Greg Keane leads them. Right in behind him, another 911. This is the machine of Anthony Tratt. Did a lot of good things last year. He's had a bit of a quiet year, you might say. We saw a return to form from him at Amaroo Park. But form, can you believe it? This man in third place at the moment with the coveted #1 plate, the 1995 Australian Porsche Cup champion, Jeffrey Morgan. Now that's a bit of a spinner. That's car 43. Owen Kelly, a talented youngster. He's had a bit of a background in go-karting, hasn't he?
Well, that's right. This is his first attempt here at Porsche Cup racing. It's fairly difficult, I suppose, to go from a go-kart into a big Porsche, particularly at Winton. But he's got a great heritage, great background in racing. And I'm sure if he sticks at Porsche Cup, who knows, could be at the pointy end of the field.
Good consistent performance being put in also by David Withers in the C2 RSR. He's just playing consistency at the moment. He's running about 5th on the circuit. Across the strike they come. Your leader Greg Keane, right in behind him Anthony Tratt. Third place by Jeffrey Morgan. Look at how hard Greg Keane is working there in the cockpit. He's really moving around in the GT2.
Well, these cars around here can get very taily. These tyres are going to heat up at this stage here, and it's the driver who can control the right foot. If you start using too much accelerator through the corners, particularly through this part of the circuit, this is really flat through here. The cars are deceptively quick. You come through these little sweeping parts here, have to jump on the brakes back to second gear and try and keep the car in a straight line. This is called Penrite corner. Very tight, very deceptive there, but you can see Keane's car jumping out of the corners very well.
The pace at the front of the field is absolutely frenetic, but there's lots of good battles going on right throughout the course of Porsche Cup racing. For those of you who are uninitiated in Porsche Cup terms, we have 3 particular categories of racing. A-Class, and this is 3 good examples right in front of you of A-Class cars. We've got B-Class, which are a little bit closer to showroom standard, and C-Class, which are almost like a road-going Porsche, you might say. These classes, though, the A-Class cars, boy oh boy, these are real races, Ian.
Well, they're the exciting ones. They're the modifications there. They have got the power to weight situation here, as we've spoken about the lead trophy. Speaking about the lead trophy, I'll tell you what, there, Morgan is carrying a fair bit of weight, and it doesn't seem to be worrying him too much at this point in time. This new car here, I mean, some people are saying, well, it's pretty radical, and by the way it's handling on the track there, I'll tell you what, they've got it straight out of the box. An excellent package.
It certainly has. He does a lot of work with the team at East Coast Suspensions, and they've obviously got it set up just perfectly at the moment. Good point to make here, of course, is that he stepped into the new car. He's done a little bit of testing at Oran Park, but he's not doing anything too radical with it at the moment. He's running in third place, and he's just putting in a good, consistent performance for his debut run.
Well, that's the important thing. You've got to look at the whole series in racing. You can look at each individual race and say, well, look, we scored well at this track, we did well at Lakeside. But Porsche Cup is all about consistency, and in racing, if you're consistent, you can keep scoring the points, bag up the points. And speaking about bagging things up, have a look at this. He's pulled out of Tratty's slipstream, and I tell you what, this car has got plenty of mumbo.
Certainly has. Let's recap the positions for you as they stand at the moment. Greg Keane, your leader. Right in behind him now is Jeffrey Morgan. Third place, Anthony Tratt. They run 1, 2 and 3. Lucio Cesario runs 4th at the moment, but there's a good gap between 3rd and 4th on the circuit. Across the strike they come to put another lap down, really turning in some superb lap times. Tratt, to his credit, is not backing off 1 iota. The 2 GT2s, though, they seem to be the car to have at the moment.
Well, they seem to be. They're working very well. I think it's more to do with the handling. I mean, it's great to have horsepower, and we've said it before that if you can't get the power to the ground, these Porsches can become absolute mongrels. They just don't want to turn in, they don't want to handle. And as you said, that Morgan's done a great job with the suspension package on this car. You can see how flat the car is sitting, particularly under brakes. And that is so important, particularly where you're going to go in as late as possible and get the maximum grip on the tyres. If you can go in deep, You can get the grip and then get out of the corner, which makes all the difference here at Winton.
At the moment, Greg Keane is your leader. This is Jeff Morgan sitting in behind him, being literally hounded by Anthony Tratt as they come down the back straight one more time. Keane has managed to sort of break free of the chains of this little battle going on. And I think that's held Morgan up to some degree, you might say, in through the sweep. But here, heading towards the front straight one more time. And this is just tremendous racing at the front of the field.
Well, Morgan's car, it is very impressive. It's very flat on the road. You can see Tratty's car, it's tending to shake up and down a fair bit. And that has a little bit to do with the way that you work the shock absorbers. You've got bump and rebound, which is simply the up and down of the shock absorber. And you've really got to dyno tune the shock absorbers on the car to get it working. Sounds pretty weird, but that's what all the professional teams do. And it's that fine cutting edge that makes all the difference about getting the car to work, particularly on a very tight circuit like Winton.
Just 2 kilometres the distance around this very tight layout, Winton Motor Raceway. Here's Withers doing a terrific job. Kelly trying to sneak up the inside in the second of the toll cars. Manages to do that. What a great debut performance from this talented youngster. 19 years of age, has had a background in go-karting, and he stepped into Porsche Cup racing like he's been doing it for years, Ian.
Well, the thing with go-karts, I mean, they're very taily, and these Porsches can have the tendency to be taily. And we do find a lot of people with go-karting experience do take to open wheelers and things like Porsches very easily. But I'll tell you what, you can't take anything away. He is really driving this car well. You just got to be a bit careful. Judging by the steering wheel work there, he's throwing the car around with a fair bit of gay abandon, and hopefully keep it on the island and not steer off into the boonies.
Keane now starting to come under a little bit of pressure from Jeffrey Morgan. Morgan snaps to the inside as they come across the strike. Who will it be as they go into the first corner? Morgan on the inside. I think Keane's going to be caught hanging out wide. Anthony Tratt's there as well. Tratt up the inside. Boy, oh boy, positions changing in the blinking of an eye. Keane, now he got caught out wide there twice. He's gone from first to third before you could even imagine.
Well, what tends to happen is you've got the situation of Keane watching his mirrors there. He's more worried about Jeff Morgan coming up there. Made a slight error, ran a bit wide there as Morgan got an inside, and that was very clever because Tratt sat back and said, I'm going to capitalise on this. Morgan created the hole. Tratt said, thank you very much. Love, set and match. 1-2.
Tell you what, a good dice going on at the point end of the field, but Cesario, I think, is going to start to come under a little bit of pressure from the second of the Toll Express cars. That, of course, is being driven by Kelly at the moment. The battle you are watching is at the pointy end of the field. This is first place, Jeffrey Morgan in the Vodafone machine, the brand new 911 GT2 around the Winton Motor Raceway circuit. In behind him, the Toll Express machine of Anthony Tratt. There's Greg Keane. He's, of course, the Rookie of the Year last year, but I tell you what, the way he's driving at the moment, certainly no rookie. Driving like a man with plenty of Porsche Cup experience. Across the strike they come, 1, 2 and 3. And Tratt, to his credit, is not giving up. He's really pressing on very hard.
I think what Anthony's done, he's looked after his tyres probably a little bit better because Keane was pushing that car very hard. He had a bit of a gap in front, and as we said before, when the tyres get hot and mushy, it doesn't matter how good the driver is, you've really sometimes got to back off a little bit, let the tyres stabilise, cool down a little bit there, they come back on, and then that way then he can come back and re-attack.
Well, 12 laps was the distance for this first race of the day. We are well and truly into it now. Morgan is your leader from Anthony Tratt. Greg Keane sits there back in third place. 911 GT2, this new car of Morgan's just so superbly turned out. Huge paint job and looking like it's very well suited to this Winton layout. Around and down the back straight they come one more time. Tratt's working pretty hard behind the wheel there.
Well, he sure is. Morgan's making it look easy, and as we said, it's all about the setup. One thing about Jeff, he really takes the motor racing very seriously. He loves the motor racing, but I'll tell you what, he is a winner through and through. And when things aren't going too well, he really sort of motivates the team and says, come on team, let's make this package work there. I'm only the driver, and I'll tell you what, it makes all the difference for the whole team to be having a successful result here today.
Battle for fourth place at the moment. This is Lucio Cesario. You can see him in the 16 car, and right in behind him, the talented youngster Kelly. Kelly's showing the scars of some earlier altercations. He snaps to the inside as they come down the front straight. Kane gives Cesario a bit of a touch. Gee, this young kid, he's got plenty of verve. He's not scared to get in there and mix it. Got the P plate on, and he's, well, getting on with the job.
I think P might stand for a bit of a prang there at the moment, but that's pretty aggressive driving. And what you find is people out of karts, they really know what push-on regardless aggressive driving is, and he's not sort of holding back one bit. Maybe that tyre rub in there could cause a bit of a problem, but it looks probably a little bit on the cosmetic side. It's only fiberglass. Hopefully the front end alignment hasn't been pushed out. If you start bumping these cars around, you can really knock out the toe in, and that can make the handling very diabolical.
So let's recap these positions you're looking at the moment. Fourth place is Kelly, fifth place is Cesario. Right in behind him is Withers, and coming into play in this one also is Col Ivory. So this is a real good four-way dice.
Yeah, well, Col Ivory, he's got the Scuderia Veloce Porsche. That's a beautifully presented car. And I'll tell you what, preparation with these Porsches makes this category so exciting. A lot of the guys have put a big effort into their preparation. And speaking of preparation, this pole car's going to need a fair bit of cosmetic preparation to make it looking brilliant once again.
Across the strike, your leaders have already come. Your leader at the moment is, of course, Jeffrey Morgan. Second place is Anthony Tratt. Third place, Greg Keane. We go back to fourth. This is young Owen Kelly. He's in fourth place at the moment. Cesario, a former Formula 2 champion here in Australia, has had some experience in Europe, and he's back aboard a Porsche and racing very, very hard indeed. You can see really taking it to Kelly through this particular part of the circuit. Kelly seems to get a better run down the back straight and get away from him, but through the corners here, look at how much Cesario has closed the gap. Then it's David Withers not too far in behind him, and then of course Colin Ivory in the 930. Now you saw Kelly run a little bit wide there. His car starting to look a little bit ragged, particularly in the handling department. I think the tyres are starting to go off in the closing stages. You can see that Cesario really trying to get up the inside, and Cesario moving about a little bit on the circuit as well. Now he's getting sideways. I think the heat is really starting to affect the performance of the tyres, Ian.
When you get the cars that close to each other, Cesario's really trying hard. He came onto the back straight, he turned in a bit early, and then it was the apex a bit soon. He ran wide, got up on the ripple strip. When you get on the power around here, you can see the ripple strip's got lots of paint on there, and it doesn't do anything for the grip for these tyres.
Particularly these rear engine cars, the 911s, they can get a little bit loose, particularly towards the closing stages of races like this, around a tight and twisty layout like Winton has. That's Kelly. And Cesario just fallen a little bit off the pace at the pointy end of proceedings. This is Jeff Morgan, your leader, in the 911 GT2. Right in behind him, Anthony Tratt. Tratt, a brilliant performance. Came from grid position number 5 at the start of this race and really worked his way through the field pretty quickly, and has taken it to Morgan right throughout the course of this particular race, and is not letting him get too far away at the moment. We've seen Greg Keane not too far in arrears there, but not close enough to make an impact at the front of the field. They go down towards the back part of the circuit for the final time here at Winton Motor Raceway. This is race 1 of the day. We've got 2 races in round 7 of the 1996 Fortron Porsche Cup, and on this particular occasion, Jeff Morgan takes it out. Second place goes to Anthony Tratt, a great run from him, and coming across the line to grab third place will be Greg Keane. Some important battles going on back in Class B also, and that's been resolved in favour of Peter Fitzgerald, with Darcy Russell and Chris Stannard not too far in arrears.
This is the 12th annual Australian Safari, and it's the 7th round of the World Cup of cross-country rallying. Over the years, it's the improvements in reliability that are most noticeable. The Jackaroo of Bruce Garland and Harry Suzuki, for example, is remarkably stock. It's the standard of preparation and quality of components that has made the finishing percentage as high as it is. Navigating, at least in the cars and trucks, uses all of the available technology, including onboard computers for distance, time, average section speeds, wheel speeds and ETAs. It's the widely used global positioning system that now makes the navigator's job a little easier. The GPS can pinpoint the vehicle's location to within 2 metres. Mind you, its real value is in confirming what the navigator should already know. Motorsport luck, be it good or bad, has a real presence in the Safari. Most competitors can accept the destruction of 1 or 2 tyres per day, but 3, 4 or more can test the team's willingness to keep the rabbit's foot on the dashboard. It's not unusual in these harsh conditions to see a competitor dig into the team's spares to bail out another not-so-lucky brother. The safari could be described as an entire rally season in one race. But ultimately, it's the challenge not just to win, but to finish. Speedweek's Greg Rust flew out to meet the competitors and characters in their push through the outback.
This is the combination of Keith Byrne and Max Roberts in the Mitsubishi Triton. And whilst at this point they were back in 11th place, they were enjoying the event immensely. Keith is a former rally driver who has had substantial experience also in racing club cars. Rather than sticking to one specific role, the team shared their driving and co-driving responsibilities between them. So, who took responsibility for damage to the car? Was it Keith?
Absolutely not. No, I had to change the shock absorber tonight. Max has knocked that around. Very disappointed in him.
Fortunately, Keith's a paddle beater. He put the first dent in it.
Gentlemen, beyond that, how are you finding the conditions on the running of the 12th Australian Safari?
Well, this is my real first safari. I attempted to compete last year and failed on the first lap. And fortunately, Max invited me along to drive with him. And I just can't believe the intensity of the event. It's tough, it's hard, it's dusty, it's hot. But we've got the fun dial wound right up, and we're having a ball.
Day 6, and the first car on the road was the combination of Garland and Suzuki in the Jackaroo. Despite some good performances early on, the second Jackaroo, in the hands of ex-Speedway racer Ross Nicastri, unfortunately suffered a major setback when a wheel parted company with the car. They were quickly back on the road, but another wheel came adrift a short time later, and on this occasion they had no spares. Thankfully, a local Aboriginal was able to sell Ross a spare wheel, and whilst it was Ross's only option, he still kept his wrecking yard policy of bartering him down to the best price. The sixth leg brought the teams back to Mount Isa and a welcome return to civilization. The day had had one of the longest stages of the entire event, some 319 kilometres. Garland had managed to extend his lead substantially over Victorian Toyota driver Craig Martin. The event was now on the downhill run towards the finish in Townsville. So, was Bruce Garland optimistic about maintaining the lead as they headed towards the 300-kilometre finish in Townsville?
Oh, hopefully great. But it gets pretty hot up in the Gulf country, so that, it really takes a lot out of you, the long stages in the heat. And it is rough up, it's rough.
You look tired now.
Yeah, I really do feel like Wallaby Ted's brother. Rude. So, yeah, we're going to have a feed and wash up and have a shave and go to bed.
Best of luck.
Thanks, mate. No worries.
So with 20 cars, 40 motorcycles and over 300 kilometres to go between Mount Isa and Townsville, can Garland hang on? We'll have all of the final stage action for you on next week's show.